The feeling of being a beekeeper comes from what we like to call bee fever. I mean, some people look at bees and they're afraid of bees or they don't want anything to do with bugs. But some people, like myself, remember clearly the first time somebody opened the top of a hive, which I was imagining were going to come and sting me, only to find that the bees were very calm. He pulled out a frame covered with bees and handed it to me, and it was just an unbelievable feeling. And from that point on, I wanted to learn more.
The bee industry, interestingly enough, King Kamehameha III recognized that part and parcel of introducing cattle to Hawaii would be to figuring out a food source for cattle, and he thought of somehow importing bees and importing a koa and kiawe as possible food sources. Those two obviously go hand in hand, as the bees would pollinate both the koa, kiawe, and a number of other feed-related sources to the cattle industry. And so I think both those industries started around the same time and have since grown in Hawaii to what they are today.
I'm sure they just wanted to bring honeybees in because they thought they were good, and there was a lot of impetus to bring crops and different things and plants to Hawaii, and because it was so isolated, so there was a lot of things that weren't here.
What makes Kona an ideal place for breeding queens is very mild climate. It's warm temperatures. It's an agricultural area, so the bees have things to work. But probably the most important thing in Kona is the protection they get from the volcano.
Bees have a huge impact here on the island. Main thing, one of the our big cash crops here on the island is coffee. And just imagine what that coffee would be like if we didn't have all these bees. It wouldn't be nowhere near as a successful industry as it is.
For me, it's all positive. Bees are great pollinators. I personally have a coffee farm in South Kona, and I have a bee farm right next to my coffee farm, and I've noticed probably anywhere from a 15 to 20% increase in production. The trees are healthier, the cherry is healthier.
And, they're just digging into every flower, so I guarantee that, the pollination's got to be better.
And beekeeping is unique in the sense that it relies on the beekeeper having relationships with other landowners, usually farmers, agriculturalists, to put their bees on their property or in their crops, in their fields.
I always considered partnerships with not only with the ranchers and the property owners that allowed us to put bees on their property. I always wanted to make that worth their while as well.
To be successful, a commercial beekeeper, he has to be able to build relationships with these landowners and build trust with them to allow them to have his vehicles come on their property with his workers and drop bees off, and that they're going to do, what they say they're going to do, and also the landowners have to be the kind of landowner that understands the importance of bees and the whole scheme of what's going on agriculturally and the importance of pollination for the honeybees.
We, as cattlemen for the bee industry, and when a beekeeper comes to the ranch and says, "Hey, I need some extra room or open space to establish a hive," we want to see them succeed. They want to see us succeed. And again, it's a greater relationship than just cattle and bees, which is an important one. But for McCandless and myself being so involved with agriculture here in Hawaii, we are big supporters of any agricultural endeavor here in Hawaii.
Queen production is a really important cog in the beekeeping industry, because you need to have these breeders providing new bees to restock to keep these this whole bee economy going. That's backbone of the agriculture in the United States. And the thing about Hawaii is, because of our location and our climate, we're able to produce queens here much sooner in the calendar year than anybody else, because of cold weather or nectar flows.
The impacts worldwide are substantial, as we were the first people to produce mated queens to send them into the almond orchards in February in California, which if you don't have bees and almonds, you don't get almonds, right? If we send out 100,000 queens from our production here, every one of those queens is the soul or the engine of a hive somewhere, right? So there's 100,000 hives, out there that are operating because we put the queens in them.
So I've worked with bees for over 30 years, and we have been, since colony collapse disorder, we've been in an unending bee crisis. And you hear about the losses every year, and every year commercial beekeepers lose at least 40% of their hives. So they go in with 100 and they come out with 60, and they have to make that up. This year, it's over 60% losses commercially, a new high level. So the queens that are produced in Hawaii have become a cornerstone to rebuild those hives after the losses every winter.
There's so many things about honeybees I love. They're one of the most studied animals on Earth. I mean, the amount of research that has gone into honeybees is crazy. Going back to the early 1800s, Carl von Frisch, and the fact that their communication skills and what happens in a hive. I mean, I'm blown away by the fact that the honeybee, a worker bee, this bee right here, one of these bees getting this nectar. Its hive could be maybe up to a mile, 2 miles away. It's probably closer, but it's getting the nectar. It's showing up at the hive. It's being greeted by other bees who are guarding to make sure this bee belongs to our hive. And so they recognize each other genetically.
Well, one of the really cool things about bees is that if you tell somebody that to produce a pound of honey, bees have to travel 75,000 miles. Just all the venturing back and forth. It's quite amazing what population in numbers, right, which bees have. How many bees does that take to travel 75,000 miles? Well, who knows? They're all flying. But to make a pound of honey, that's what it takes.
Hawaii is a bonanza of flowers. It's famous for flowers. And flowers and honeybees have a very old, intimate relationship. So people don't often realize that the fragrances and the architecture and all of the little hairs and the markings on the flower that make it look like a runway to a bee is actually just to attract pollinators. So the only reason a flower produces nectar is as a reward to get that bee to visit, because the pollen fertilizes one flower to the next. And so the bee's hairs hold that pollen and they take the nectar and go to the next flower to get the nectar, and that pollen is transported. And only if that happens do you get the nut, the seed, the fruit, and all of these foods that are pollinated by insects make up about a third of our diet. And it's the colorful things, it's our favorite foods, the fruits and vegetables. But if you see a beautiful flower on a plant, it's there to compete, to bring in pollinators, because that helps the plant reproduce.
Yeah, farming, it's like anything, and everybody has a place in life. And if you like outdoors, you like to get dirty, you want to work hard for what you get, farming is very, very rewarding.
Beekeeping is a job or occupation that you're going to learn something every single day you're at it. There's not one day you don't learn something new. You might think, oh, this beehive is the same thing as next beehive, but no two beehives are the same. You're always gonna learn something new here, and it's good fun.
The thing about queen breeding is there's a lot more. You got to use your mind than just pulling honey every day. There's a lot more aspect into it. There's always a million different things can happen. I don't know, it keeps you on your toes every day. You're always learning. You always learn something every day. You'll never know everything. If you think you know everything, then you got it wrong, because it's always something different every day.
Honeybees need good support on the landscape. They fly 10 miles to find food, so you don't have to have a hive in your backyard in order to help them. You can just plant flowers. Don't use pesticides. Use them as a last resort, and make sure that the bees have a lot of good forage. Buying honey from a local beekeeper makes a huge difference in their economy and their ability to keep healthy bees.
You want to add anything I didn't add?
Just aloha Kona. It's been a wonderful place to live and raise a family, and certainly this whole industry and bee business was a total blessing for me.